Mr. Krishna, uh, every prime minister embodies his style of diplomacy, if I may use the word. It's robust when it comes to Narendra Modi. Nehru had a different style. Indira Gandhi had a different sartorial style. Rajiv Gandhi had a different style. His diplomacy was gentle but firm. How do you encapsulate the diplomatic contribution of Dr. Manmohan Singh?
See, first of all, let me clarify that Dr. Manmohan Singh, a lot of people think he was a very soft-spoken, which he was, a person with the mild mannered person, but behind his soft exterior was a very strong and no nonsense interior, and he was very resolute, very firm in what he believed was good for the country. I mean, if you look at the footprint that he left, not just in terms of our economy when he was the finance minister, but when he was the prime minister, the relationship with all major powers improved very substantially. I mean, the 2005 nuclear deal with the US was indeed his crowning glory. And, it actually ended India's apartheid, against the nuclear apartheid, and it created a huge amount of favorable geopolitical configuration that India could later leverage on. And a lot of people think, oh, what was a big deal that so much of the nuclear deal was tom about. But the fact is, it paved way for much more collaboration between the US and India in areas such as critical technologies, defense, high tech, and so on and so forth. And the kind of rapport he had with President Bush and later with President Obama is could be a dream for any set of any kind of diplomacy to take place. I mean, the way look at 2008's economic crisis and the global economic crisis. India was largely untouched, and during that time, our GDP grew close to 9% per annum. And thanks to the economic reforms of the last 33 years, the average GDP growth of the country, which used to be 2, 3, 4% earlier, what we used to call as the Gandhian rate of growth of GDP, galloped to almost 7% if you look at the average in the last 30 years. I think it's an amazing contribution that he made to the country, and I have in today's public life, I don't see anybody who has this combination of intellect, integrity, and humility on the top of it. So I think what you see today as India's improved relationship with the US, with UK, with so many different countries, with the most of the European countries. I mean, his rapport with the German chancellor. I mean, she used to consult him for how to manage the German economy. Obama used to say that when Manmohan Singh speaks, the world listens. Imagine what a powerful statement. So I think India would remember him with huge amount of respect,
You're
and
forgetting
not only.
Shinzo Abe.
Sorry.
You're forgetting Shinzo Abe also.
Yeah,
The
yeah, yeah.
Quad.
So there's a huge amount of contribution in n number of fields. What you talk about, what you let go. Look at, and a lot of people think that he only did economic reforms, but look at social sector reforms, the RTI, the right to information, right to education, the Mahatma Gandhi rural employment guarantee scheme. Aadhaar, the food security thing, and land acquisition bill. So many different things he did. I remember when RTI was being passed in the parliament, he said, we are giving you one big stick to beat the government with. But this is a part of fine legislation whose time has come, and you have every right to get it. And since then, the accountability in the way government manages its affairs, the way it documents the decision making process in the file, it has become surely more transparent than what it used to be. So I think in every walk of life, his contribution has been huge. I remember I was with the Tata Group when Dr. Manmohan Singh was the prime minister and Dr. APJ Kalam was the president. And a lot of international clients who used to come to India, and when we used to travel abroad to meet them, they used to say, wow, what a country you are. Where one of the best economists the world can think of is your prime minister, and one of the finest scientists the world has had is your president. So those were the days when we were known for huge amount of, and look at what he achieved in his life. It was all based on pure merit. no recommendations. He didn't know anybody. A boy who comes to India, after partition and studies, in street lights. Later, gets his degrees from the best in class universities, Cambridge and Oxford. And look at it in finance portfolio, every conceivable role in the country. Principal economic advisor to the government, the vice chairman, planning commission, which is the quasi financial role, finance secretary, RBI governor, finance minister, and subsequently the prime minister. Everything he handled, and he didn't go and beg for any roles anywhere. I think he brought a lot of stature to these roles, and his contribution in independent India, to my mind, is among all prime ministers, is second to none. Perhaps only exception could be Pandit Nehru, because those were the formative years just after independence, where the economy was totally shattered, systems were not in place, industry almost was non-existent. I think that is an exception. The initial, 16, 17 years, because Pandit Nehru had to start from the scratch. But I think among all prime ministers put together, I would put his contribution to the country, including his component as a finance minister, I would put it second to nobody else. A huge amount of respect I have, and the nation has huge amount of gratitude for Dr. Manmohan Singh, what he brought. What we see our economy as a resurgent today. We are the fifth largest economy. By purchasing power parity, we are already the third largest economy. All this wouldn't have seen the light of the day if Dr. Manmohan Singh's economic reforms as the finance minister in 1991, and from 2004 to 2014, the next set of reforms had not happened. And of course, Prime Minister Modi has also continued with the same economic thought from 2014 onwards, and which is responsible for India's.
You used a word, madam. You worked with the Prime Minister, with his team, gentle but firm.
I would say firm but gentle. I would put it the other way, because I think as a leader of a very, very disparate, chaotic, political environment, where his party was not the main dominant political power, the fact that he was, seen as a new entrant to the party, and therefore there were issues about his acceptance as a political leader. I think in that environment, given the fact that he was battling on so many personal fronts as well to establish his credibility, to the fact that the country had a very, very difficult economic and social environment at that time. So I would say that his gentleness really was the secondary factor. The first was his intellectual brilliance, the fact that he knew what was to be done. And I do recall, a comment made by one of the very senior secretaries who worked with him in the finance ministry. It was a day when this is on a slightly lighter tone. It was a day when the government had taken some decision, and the stock markets actually did not respond favorably on that particular day. So as he stepped out for lunch from North Block on the steps, the media was waiting for him. And the media asked him, Minister, what is your comment on the stock markets? So he said, I do not understand the stock markets. And later a bureaucrat told me, he says, that is not a comment on Dr. Singh, that is a comment on the stock markets. So that was the kind of credibility that he had. That was the kind of person he was, resolute, who would not really get pushed around. Yes, he did understand that everything cannot move with the speed that he would have liked it to move. But that is, I think, the beauty and the grace with which he lived. And that is the beauty and grace of a democratic country, where we say, yes, we have all these issues. We have to convince everybody. We have to take everybody along. And I think he embodied that wisdom, that intellectual brilliance in himself. So I would definitely say that he was gentle, but his more important quality was that he was firm, he knew what to do, and he did it.
Mr. Krishna, people encapsulate his diplomacy. I completely agree with you in context of the nuclear deal. Can we account for his other diplomatic achievements? Can we list 4 things which we can directly owe it to the Prime Minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh.
See, I think it's today a lot of international diplomacy boils down to the economics. I think that is such an important component of overall diplomacy. I'll just give you an
You
example.
to this question is
US.
because the reason why I ask you this question is because, and there is no pun intended, after 2014, you have Prime Minister Modi very well documented. It's the critics would say it's a spectacle, but I would say that he's using the power of the visual and the social media to create and project an Indian image outside, abroad, outside India and inside India as well. But that was not something which Prime Minister Manmohan Singh was doing. So it is in this context, it's very important as to what he did without those optics.
Yeah, so I think he never believed in optics. He was a camera shy person. He would never go for a huge he was not media savvy. He was not
But he
didn't
was
believe in
never, but
speed.
Jayant, he was never afraid to answer any question. I have been part of his
Yeah,
trips
yeah. I mean,
so many times
absolutely.
in his 747, and it's unimaginable. Prime Minister of this country sitting in front of you. आप सब लोग नीचे बैठे हुए हैं 747 में. There's a chamber where journalists get. Not everyone can get to sit there, and he would talk to you for 1 hour on everything and anything under the sun.
Exactly, exactly. I mean those formal or informal press conferences, on his trips, return trips from abroad, and even facing in even in the most difficult times, he would face a media open house and respond to all difficult questions. He was never ever scared at all, despite him not being a media savvy person. But his content was so rich. His belief on what's good for the country is so big, was so huge, so firm and resolute. His belief and in progressing further on the transformation journey for the country was so full of commitment that he could face any difficult questions. And especially in UPA 2 were not the easy years for Dr. Manmohan Singh. But he faced all that. And I think since you talked about international, I'll give you the example of US itself. Our trade with the US in the early part of this century was just a few $1 billion. And today our trade with the US is exceeds $200 billion, and it's the only country perhaps with whom US has India has a trade surplus in its favor, which means we export more to the US than what we import from the US. So I think those were the lot of people think, oh, what was the big deal in just signing a nuclear deal? Is that all that integral and huge component of our energy requirements or our economy or whatever it is? But it paved way for a far greater collaboration between the two countries. So it was very strategic, not just confined to nuclear energy. Of course, that was important given our huge power deficit that we used to have then. But I think I mean amazing. Any country that you look at, his relationship with UK, relationship with Germany, even relationship with Pakistan improved. Of course, then the Bombay, bombings happened that reversed the course. But if you study the interactions and the meetings before that, our relationship with Pakistan was, going to improve substantially. But then Pakistan as a country, can never be fully trusted. And then it was a lot of people say it was a state-sponsored terrorism in Bombay, the Bombay attacks. So I think, I mean, the man's contribution is known only for economy, but I would say it was a equally strong and perhaps somewhat invisible footprint in the
Okay.
international arena as well.
Okay.